Welcome back to another Exchange podcast, and this week it is going back to old school. It's going to be just JaVaughn and I today, and we always look forward to having guests, but today I also want to say a lot of that has to do with the weekend it is, and I want to say Happy Independence Day weekend, and always remember that the Second Amendment makes this holiday possible.
Man, I love Independence Day. Such a great movie. I love Will Smith in that.
And Will Smith, and then I can never think. It's not Dennis. What's his brother's name?
You guys know about the president?
No, he's the guy who flies the plane.
Oh, yeah, the guy who goes, "Hey guys,
yeah.
I'm back." Yeah, I don't remember him.
But anyway, I want to just kind of say something before we get rolling. There's one of my words. There's not my word. There is a word that is one of my least favorite words because it's so overused. It is when I hear someone say, "That is so satisfying." Because I'm not the kind of person that is just satisfied. I'm content, but I'm rarely satisfied. There's a difference.
Boy, you must be fun at parties.
Because here's why, okay? The podcast is doing good. We are having, our views are growing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get satisfied where we are. I'm content with how things are going. But I'm never satisfied with where we are at the present, and I probably never will be. I walk away from every podcast going, man, I could have done a whole lot better on that today. But here's what I want to say. I want to say all that to say this. Those of you who are listening to us and liking and sharing our podcasts, I want to say thank you. You've hung out with us for over a year. We're grateful to have you here. I would just say, let's do just a little bit more. Let's continue to talk it up to our friends and our family, get them to come and listen, and help us out too. Because maybe you can't be a guest here on the podcast, but what you can do is if you hear something, see something, say something. That's one of my other least favorite. Now I'm going on my rabbit trail here. That's another one of my least favorite. See something, says something. But if you hear something, text it into us. Become a part of the exchange. If you're in a conversation with a friend, a family member, you hear something on TV. Hey, we got other things going on Monday through Friday here at the Exchange Podcast, and we don't always catch everything. So if you get something, text it into us. Either go to Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you can get a hold of the Exchange podcast, and let us know about it. We want to hear about it. We would love to address it. That's the reason why it's the Exchange. Now, there's many Exchange podcasts, but there's only one, the Exchange Podcast, and you're sitting here today.
Look for the arrows.
Look for the arrows. Look for the arrows.
They will lead you to us.
And but we are glad to have you here. And just like I said, let's create, especially on YouTube. Let's get a dialogue going here. I welcome it. I welcome it. And we were just talking about later down the line, maybe having a guest on here who probably doesn't see things eye to eye the way we do, but that's okay. That is completely okay. But with that, I'm going to say, JaVaughn, welcome back, man.
Yeah, it's been good to have the amount of guests we've had. We've had Michael twice, your dad, my father, and
a pastor.
And a pastor and his wife. I mean, those views go up.
And a missionary.
That's true. And I think, if we're going to be completely fair, it's really because people tune into the Exchange for an exchange,
right,
and not just between us. Now, you like us. We know you do. You're here.
You wouldn't listen to us.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
You like us. You really like us.
And but on it, people like me.
Yeah, I think that's a Dr. Seuss book.
No, that was he ran for congressman or senator out of Minnesota. But before he did that, he was on Saturday Night Live, and he did these weekly affirmations. I'm cute. I'm lovable.
Oh.
I don't know who that. People like me.
So look, you mentioned Saturday Night Live. I dropped out of watching or knowing or caring about Saturday Night Live like mid 2010s. But to talk about guests coming on, I have a cousin out in California He's my second cousin, technically. He's my mom's cousin. And he actually did have a question. He was wondering what I thought about
Al Franken.
Al Franken. Okay, yeah. I know the name. Didn't know he was on SNL. Strange.
Sure was.
The question was, what did I think, particularly because we were just having a dialogue between us.
Yeah.
But Kamala Harris had a seat at the Black Economic Forum, and she was discussing how things are for black people. And one of the things I noticed about our vice president is that she's a good improv artist, because questions were asked and the deflection was so great you would have thought she used the force.
She always seems to be, to me, she always seems to be the most ill-prepared person in the room.
Well, let me put it this way. When we first started this podcast and I had no idea what we were doing, there would be times where I would just kind of have to just give my opinion with nothing backing it. And it was quickly called out, and I corrected it.
You corrected it. You got better.
I got better.
We've not seen that out.
It doesn't seem like she... Well, and I think the problem is because one of the questions had to do with low-income areas.
Okay.
And one of the things she said, she started off with, there's a lot of violence, but that doesn't have, that's not, and I'm paraphrasing, so bear with me. I will post a section of it. It's from Vox News. You can find it on their website. They had a live of her talking about this, and she was trying to say that low income doesn't necessarily equate to violence in areas and whatnot. And, okay, listen, let's talk about something nobody likes to talk about. That's true, okay?
Yeah.
Low-income areas are predominantly minority groups like Hispanics and black people. And you have these areas where if you just listen to the last podcast we had with my dad, you'll find out that it does correlate with one another. If you're in a low-income area, my father was talking about how he was going to sell drugs and make money and be like these cool guys in these books that he was reading. And the moral of the story was those guys end up dead. Guess what? Death usually, if it's not naturally, it's pretty violent.
Yeah.
And so...
And the scripture tells us that, that they meet a violent end.
They meet a violent end when they're doing something wrong. And that doesn't mean I'm not empathetic to people in low-income areas. Heck, our church is in technically a low-income area, and we do our best to... shucks, just the other day, we had pizza, and none of the kids showed up for church. So what I did was, before I came back to listen to Sister Danielle speak, I went out to the neighborhood, and I just passed out the boxes to anybody who was outside. And one of the kids I knew from church, his family was doing things together, and I just handed him a couple of boxes because there was multiple kids in the house. And sometimes just serving and feeding and being around mitigates, like, hey, someone... Because doing something nice goes a long way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you pour out the Spirit onto someone else, usually, and I say usually because some people's hearts are hardened, usually they take it as, they did something nice for me. I'm going to do something nice for someone else, or I'm going to, heck, the biggest thing would be I'm going to get in the scripture right now because the Lord blessed me with this. So to circle back, I'm going to steal that.
That was the original press secretary, the one before...
Yes, the redhead.
Circle back.
Circle back. I'm taking that. I'm stealing it from her. But
this administration's given us a lot of great stuff.
The Kamala Harris thing about low income, areas and violence, she had that, and what I just gave you was the problem.
Yeah.
And I gave you what I think a solution could be. What she gave was the problem, and then she tried to dance around and try to say that minority areas aren't violent in a way. And because it makes minorities look bad, and here's the thing, everybody looks bad, okay?
Right.
The people with the money, they look bad because Paul calls them who have, if you have money and you're part of the church, it's like, hey, like, do your best to help, and you don't have to give your money away, but just do your best to use your resources to help the body. And the body, it can be grown through the finances. And those of you without money, do your best to serve the Lord in the way that you are. Be content, kind of like what you were saying. Be content with where you are. So I guess what I'm getting at is, since I've been rambling a bit, Kamala Harris does a really good job of deflecting and then moving on to something because she started talking about some type of study. And then she started talking. And I just thought to myself, and this is just for you, Eric. I'm not going to pull the whole name out, but my cousin Eric, I truly believe that it is foolish for us to really not hold our leaders' feet to the fire. Okay, listen, you're deflecting. Please give me a solution to this, or what you think a solution should be, because even if the solution is 1/10 of the correct thing, heck, you're moving in the right direction.
No, we should keep we should hold our leaders, because our leaders we're governed by the consent of the governed, and our founding fathers, one of their biggest concerns, almost a fear really, and maybe for some it was a fear, was whether or not that our union would be preserved. And you can even go to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address.
Sure.
And that's one of the questions he asks is, really, he says it throughout, leading all the way up, and really throughout his administration, is will the Union stand? And that's the reason why we have the State of the Union address. That's the reason why, how so stands the Union, so on and so forth. Because America is an experiment. America is something that had never been tried before. And here we are 250 years later, and we're still going. So it's and I'll say something about low income. Most low income places, and I'm not waving the Republican flag here, but most low income places are typically heavily represented by the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Now, something that just actually occurred to me, and I can't back this up, but I probably need to do a little more research on this. We always hear about the low-income area, and we're always talking about the minorities because they're affected. But you said they don't want to make the minorities look bad, and of course you don't want to make people look bad.
No.
You don't want to just shame people, but you do want to let people know, hey, there is a better way to live.
Yeah.
But one thing that I notice about our media and our entertainment industry is they're not afraid to shame the low income areas where it's predominantly white people.
No, of course.
Give you an example. We call them trailer trash. I mean, that's what they're referred to, right? And that's a very derogatory term. Now, my point being is, what led me to that is they even, and we're going to get into this here in just a little bit with all of these Supreme Court decisions that were handed down this week. I mean, this has been a historical. Last year and this year have had some historical decisions by the Supreme Court, and but they in those areas, that is where real segregation occurs, because you look at your higher end. The minorities that are white collar worker, they're typically living on, and your dad even said this, they're typically living on the same street as the white collar worker.
Yeah.
Even on some of your blue collar workers.
Yeah.
But when you start getting into the low income, and let's just call it like it is, in most of those, you go into a lot of trailer parks. Not all, I don't want to throw them all in. I don't want to lump all of them in there. But you go into a lot of them, like we got one just right up the street. Mm-hmm. It's apparent meth is probably being cooked there.
Yeah, what is it? I guess we could call it near impoverished, because
it's
poverty,
it's just a string of bad decisions.
Yeah, poverty has a very definite has a definition that is exact, but I don't want to call it impoverished, because some people are living in that trailer because, hey, we're moving and I'm living in this trailer because it's cheaper, and then I'm going to move on. But yeah, it is a slew of bad decisions.
Now that, and again, if you live in a trailer, because there are good trailer parks, that's not bad. But if you look, I'm just trying to point out that 9 times out of 10, it is a heavily Democrat stronghold with policies that have been and governments that have ran that, and they've just continued. And what they're doing is they're creating their voting base.
Yeah, they're creating disease where they pretend like they have the cure, and therefore, hey, follow me.
Yeah.
And that is inherently, in a bad way, Christ-like.
Right.
Because Christ does have the cure. And, you know, when we're speaking on the podcast about all these things, a lot of us in the church think that there are get-out-of-jail-free cards in the church, and we'll hear a pastor say something, we'll hear a deacon say something, but guess what? They don't have all the answers. Thomas, myself, and Chris had a long conversation about how leadership was going with me and leadership was going just in general, and we don't have to get into the details, but if any of you think that we as leaders in the church are perfect and we have the answer and the cure, and you follow us because you think we personally have it, you're wrong.
Right.
And that is the problem, is that going back to these politicians, AOC is a good example, because she promises great things. The promises sound sweet. They're tickling their ears, as the Bible would say. But let's be honest here. You guys haven't seen anything. There's not been too much shown by her. She got a lot of jobs kicked out of her area, and what has that done for the people? That's made more people impoverished to go, I'm going to vote for the Democrats because the Democrats are promising us free stuff, and it's like, that's not good.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. AOC, that is a waste of a beautiful woman.
It took me a second. I was wait a minute.
Because
you're canceled.
Aside from all the memes that make her look crazy, and, when she's just kind of in her normal persona, she's I think she's a very attractive woman. I do. It's just something there behind those eyes that you're going, there's the problem. When she says right after the Super Bowl that all the ads about Christ and Jesus were unsettling to her, there's a little bit of a concern there for me, because there's only one individual in the entire world that gets unsettled by the name of Jesus. And look, you may laugh. I do believe the devil's real, and so I'm not saying she's the devil. I'm not even saying she's possessed.
It's just
I'm saying that she gets unsettled by that stuff. So there is some issues there, and I say that she's a waste of a beautiful woman because, I think she's very attractive. The problem is she opens her mouth.
He's single, AOC.
Now,
Have you seen those? Have you seen the post she posted on Twitter like a year back? She was like, "Why are all these Republicans obsessed with me?" or something like that, and a lot of people started memeing her because it was
she's a paradox.
It's like, well, well, yeah, I guess you could say that. There was I want to find the study, but have you ever? And guys, this show isn't the news. Okay, we're not the news. We don't claim to be some source of knowledge.
YouTube, cancels us. We can say whatever.
but there are subjective studies, right, I should say, of these people saying, well, conservative women are mostly there are mostly attractive women in the conservative area.
Those are real studies.
I know those are real studies, and again, it's subjective because it is looks. And
I think, though, too, when you read those, most of the time, one of the things they point out is that conservative women are typically, and the same thing with men, I use the word content. We're typically more content. We're typically more happy with life.
Yeah.
We may not be satisfied, because satisfaction a lot of times can, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like that word, this is so satisfying.
Yeah,
because what satisfaction will cause us to do, if we're not careful, is to become complacent. And the problem, and one of the things that a lot of those studies point out is that the liberal and the left, the women on the left and those that are liberal, typically it's not that they just become complacent. Typically they're bitter, and they are not happy if you're happy.
Yeah,
we on the right can celebrate when someone succeeds.
You look at You can go through left Twitter, and I say left Twitter just hyperbolically because it's not all of them, but you'll find that the ones who are very radical got botched haircuts. And when I say botched, I don't mean because there are good-looking women with shorter hair, with the wolf cut, with like, and it looks good. Okay,
Right,
it does. But then you got like, I'm not even gonna bring up. I'm gonna say it so I don't bring it up. But I'm not gonna bring up like the blue-haired feminist thing.
Oh, right.
Who cares? All right, color doesn't really matter in terms of like hair color because sometimes it looks good on some people, sometimes it doesn't. But that's the stereotype. But then you see, some of them who are just like, I'll do what I want because I think I'm beautiful. It's like, hey, that's great. That's great. But don't get mad if somebody doesn't think you're beautiful, okay?
Yeah, like the women who, you don't want to date me because I'm fat.
Oh, okay. Listen. We're getting into territory that I didn't think we were going to get into. So
that's what we do.
Let me take a pause here to say happy 4th of July. If any of you are going to be launching M80s, underneath your cousin's chair or something, be careful. We do not condone drinking and blowing up explosives or anything for that matter. However, we do want to say that we want to remember that this is a weekend for fun festivities with family and friends. And I wanted to say that before we get into this hot topic of, no, I don't want to date you because you're fat. So it is.
And the word spoken by the host is not always covered by the management.
No. So I want to get in. I do want to say that. Okay, look. There was once a time where there was a standard. Okay. Yeah. You look at the pictures of not just America, but let's say the West in general.
Right.
And I guarantee you, your mom and dad remember the beaches of yesteryear, where they were growing up.
Right.
And nobody was like obese. Yeah. Nobody was a twig either. But nobody was obese.
Right.
Nobody's saying you have to be a twig. Nobody's telling you have to have abs. Okay?
No.
But what we're saying is, and it's okay, just be a little healthy. Just be a little healthy in terms of, can you climb up Pinnacle Mountain? And if you know anything about Pinnacle Mountain here in Arkansas, it ain't that big.
No.
Can you climb up it? And if you can't, you may want to start training.
And look, I on the 6th of this month, in 5 days, I've got to go for an echocardiogram. You know why? Because I made some bad choices as a younger man. Do I think I have heart problems? No, I do not. I do know I've got to start getting more healthy, and I have been taking steps to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say, I quote that in jest because there are some people that are saying that. And,
sure.
Here's the deal. What we're doing, it's not just heavy people. There are people that will try to shame you if you say, I'm not going to date a trans person.
Yeah, it goes, it stems from...
Where you're homophobic.
Yeah, it stems from like, oh, you're fat phobic, you're homophobic, you're transphobic. And it's like, maybe I just don't think you're attractive, and that's okay. For instance, this has nothing... We're not talking about the happily married people who just so happen to be overweight. All right? Yeah. If you're happily married, you don't need my or Thomas's approval. You don't need the world's approval. You got your man, you got your woman. Leave it at that. Because there is a time to be satisfied. I'm satisfied with my wife's love for me.
Yeah.
It's not I'm content with that and I need more. It's I'm satisfied with my wife's love for me. I'm satisfied with how my wife sees me.
My satisfaction, I'm meaning coming from myself.
Sure. But you should be satisfied with how your significant other sees you. Now, if you're single, this might be for you.
Yeah.
Because you are looking for the approval in terms of looks by someone else. You can't get mad if they don't see you the way you want them to see you.
Right.
Because there's so much of this, like, you need to love yourself. You need to, you're always beautiful. I'll see on whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, it'll be, look at these beautiful ladies.
Yeah.
And they are grossly overweight. And we're talking like, guys, how many old people, and not just in homes, because everybody goes to the homes.
Right.
How many old people do you know, as old as your dad?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Mose, you are old. But as old as your dad, who are obese.
Yeah.
Your dad's not obese.
No.
Okay? And your dad's going to live longer because he's not obese.
Right. Well, it's a health thing. And, and you can be too thin.
Yeah.
When you look at, they say, well, you want me to be a twig. No, that isn't. No. Women needing to look like twigs came from magazines like Cosmopolitan. that are published and written and owned by women. It was women's views placing on other women that you were supposed to look like that. But if you look at all the magazines that men publish, the women don't look anything like that. They are healthy, but they don't look anything like that. You can tell they've probably had a steak or a piece of pizza at some point in their life. What I'm trying to say is, if we allow our view to be that of someone else's, then we get what we've got, where we have, we've got gay people in New York marching down the streets completely nude. You and I don't get that right. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to see me do that. Well, but at the same time, we don't get that right.
I think we should clarify that not all gays, not all lesbians are for this type of behavior.
No, they're not for it, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is that
but you can be. Yeah. You can be. But I should make it clear that there is something abnormal, because even the people part of the LGBT community, I saw a funny video of a guy saying, honey, I'm straight as a rainbow, okay? Listen, but that doesn't mean my kids are going to be at these parades. That doesn't mean these kids are going to be in clubs. That doesn't mean my kids, I'm not going to have my junk around for my kids to see. Yeah. This is wrong. And that's coming straight from the gay horse's mouth. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it is.
No, I don't think they're all that way. That's not what I'm trying to imply.
And I'm just clarifying so that our listeners understand that we know. Yeah. We're not going to. We know that there are abnormalities in every group. There are abnormalities in the church, unfortunately. And so it's just a matter of, you're right. There are these rights that are afforded, and not even rights. They're privileges. Yeah. Okay. There are privileges for people for a whole month, and Pride Month is now over, and guess what? Nothing has changed. Nobody hates you. Nobody's trying to get out their shotguns and chase you now that Pride Month is over. No one's trying to harm you. I'm not trying to. And when I say no one, I mean sensible people. Are there crazies out there? Sure. But you want to know what I'll do? I will defend your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness just as much as another Christian in my church, okay? Because, I may not agree with you, but you can do your thing, and I don't want anyone to harm you.
All I want is you to do the same thing. Look, I will defend your right to the death, if that's what's necessary. Yeah. I just ask you to
return the favor.
Michael Murphy, who's been on this show, he and I were having a discussion, and we're getting ready to celebrate, as you said before we went on, True Pride Month, American Pride, America. Okay. Anyway,
careful.
Anyway, we're getting ready to celebrate Independence Day, the founding of this nation, 4th of July. And we have the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And I am thankful for what our military does. But our military the federal military was never the idea of the founding fathers. This is the reason why the left gets so tangled up and miscombobulated and trip all over themselves whenever the Second Amendment is brought up. And they say, well, they were talking about having flintlock muskets. And no, they weren't, because they knew. That's why they said to the right to own and bear arms, because you and I, JaVaughn and Thomas and whoever's listening to this, we are meant to be, and we're meant to be, the first line of defense. That's why the Second Amendment's there. Yeah. The right to own and bear arms, and to keep a well-regulated militia. And militia is a word that the left has strategically they have made that. Okay, let's go back to the word trailer trash that I used earlier. Go watch a TV show that's dealing with a militia in modern times, and they compare them to people like the Branch Davidian, or 9 times out of 10, it's somebody that doesn't have good hygiene. They haven't seen a bar of soap in 20 years. They don't brush their teeth. They don't comb their hair. They look wild-eyed and crazy. And so that's a militia. No, that's not. And that's somebody who's, they're living out in the woods somewhere. But at the end of the day, we are the front line of defense. Yeah. The military was always meant to, we come together to defend our nation. Then when the war is over, we separate and we break up and we go home.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, you and I are going, hey, you may be from, Oklahoma or Texas or, wherever, and I'm living in Tennessee or Arkansas or wherever, but I'm from that state, but we're Americans in general. Yeah. And so, here we are, and that kind of leads up to this this landmark decision that they made about the
affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Because there were two big ones. There was affirmative action and businesses now being able to.
Well, I was getting ready. I was going to both of them, but I wanted to start with affirmative action. I mean, that was a big decision that they just handed down on Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, no, it is a big one. To segue from what we were talking earlier, because we were talking about rights of everybody, and to close out the subjectivity of who likes you. Listen, just because someone doesn't like you doesn't mean you get to change the rights of the world.
That's right.
That's all. That's what I'm going to close that with, and I'm going to go to the affirmative action, which is a good thing to segue to, because subjectivity is. I see the name JaVaughn Iversen. I read JaVaughn. I read Iversen, and he is objectively a black man.
Mm-hmm.
It says right there: black, Hispanic, and white.
Right.
We're not going to worry about the white part. Look at the black and Hispanic, and we're going to give him the scholarship.
Yeah.
I see Thomas Tipton of Missouri.
And the name alone, Tipton,
white boy.
Is and it's primarily an English name.
Right. So I'm gonna look at that and go, well, Thomas has similar GPA, has similar, extracurriculars, and goes to church on Sunday, just like JaVaughn.
Yeah.
But I'm going to choose JaVaughn because he's black. And I read an article that says, well, now that affirmative action is gone, school admission will be more subjective. And it's like, well, it'll be objective and subjective at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have good grades? Great. We'll take you. Do you also have good grades? We're not going to take you.
Right.
We want this person. We don't want you.
Yeah.
And I think the hard thing is that you can't get upset because a college doesn't want you.
Right.
And let me say this as well. College is not, and I'm going to say this with caps lock on, for everyone. It's not.
For everyone.
It's not for everyone, okay?
Nope.
It's for people who want to excel in academia, okay? All right? Listen.
Right. I was just actually having this conversation with someone the other day.
Yeah? Well, how'd that go?
Well, what I said, look, there's a lot of ways to become a success without going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And in our society right now, with the way things are, and going back with affirmative action didn't even hurt me as a white guy. It hurt the Asian culture, and Asian and Hispanic cultures, primarily Asian, because they were like, well, Asians have this, they've already got this leg up on everybody else, right? It really was a racist thing, and guys like Thomas Sowell, who he's emphatically against it, because he looks at it as being something saying, you know what Thomas Sowell has earned academically, he couldn't get it unless a white person helped him get there. And that is what I'm trying to say about all of these policies, because they want to segregate, and yet they still want to make minorities feel like if you're going to make it, you've got to have the Democrat Party to do it.
Yeah.
And politicians they absolutely love that power. And so what I said, I was talking to somebody, I said, look, at the end of the day, you can get to where you want to be. Okay, I'll give you an example. If I figured I wanted to start a career in the fast food industry,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to go and get a job at, whatever you want to call it, whatever place you want to say. And I'm going to start off there working my part-time shift, picking up all the extra shifts that I can get.
Yep.
I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to ask the manager to teach me everything they can. And then within 3 to 5 years, I'm going to try to become a shift manager. 3 to 5 years after that, I'm going to try to become a store manager. 3 to 5 years after that, I'm probably going to try to open up my own store.
Yep.
And I'm going to keep working my way up that chain to where one of two things. I'm either going to have, a half a dozen or more, or maybe a dozen of those stores in the town I live in, or I'm going to go and I'm going to start my own chain.
The best example I have for that is my wife. She got a job in high school at a very popular grocery store.
I didn't think about her, but yeah.
But she doesn't have a college degree, and she makes more money than I do right now. So it is one of those things where there's a lot of cool things you can do as an American without a college degree.
Yeah.
Now, are there more options when you get a college degree? Sure. But has anyone ever asked themselves, do you want those options?
Right.
Because I think what ended up happening for people my age, especially, I would say anybody between the ages of 35 and 20, we were told by our parents, and I don't think you should get mad at your parents for this, just what they thought was right. We were told by our parents, if you don't get a college degree, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Now, and hey, you know,
many kids were drug into classrooms saying, hey, if you get a college degree, you're going to make this much more money than your peer who doesn't.
And here's the thing. You guys heard my dad's story. Why wouldn't he tell me that? You know, why wouldn't he tell any of his boys that? And for the most part, my parents are right. I have a college degree, and it's not a technical degree. It's not like an engineering degree. Yeah. It's an arts degree. But people still see it, and I have 2 degrees. And people still see it, and I've heard people say, listen, I'm giving you the job because, you know, I know that I see that you have work experience, but the leg up is that you also went to school. So it's not only that I don't go into job interviews with my 2 degrees and think, well, I got the job. This is cake. What I do is I have 6 years of real work experience in different fields, for that matter. Police officer, teacher, assistant teacher, blah, 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 mechanic now. And it just shows, well, he's willing to work in a plethora of different areas, and he's willing to learn those things. But not only that, he can be coachable and well-rounded because of, I see he has 2 degrees. I see he has experience as a leader on a high-performing football team. All these types of things that people would say, oh, it's a waste of time to go to college. I don't think it's a waste of time to go to college if you can sit down with a mentor who's gone to college. So it could be a parent, could be a coach, could be a teacher, whatever, and really kind of iron out, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to go. Because I'm telling you right now, Thomas, if I hear, because these are the people who complain the most about, debt forgiveness and affirmative action. If I hear any other art student who has a degree in philosophy or a degree in gender studies or a degree in everybody's favorite underwater basket weaving.
Right.
For the love of all that is holy, guys, you didn't get a degree to make money.
No.
That degree doesn't make you money. That degree just says, hey, this person is this certain level of expertise in it, this certain level of expertise. When I got my master's degree, I thought it was pretty cool because I felt like a Jedi Master from Star Wars. Right. And the guy was like, well, now you're a master. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Eat that, Anakin. That's a Star Wars joke. But it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't get it for money. I really didn't. I got it because, it was free. I was working for the university. But I got it because I thought I like to learn. Yeah. And this is a cool avenue to go down. Right. And by God, I'm going to do it. So that was what I knew. I knew I wasn't going to make money because of my degree. I knew it was going to open doors, but that's about it. And you still got to work hard. I think a lot of people look at this affirmative action being taken away, and it takes away the idea of, dang, I now have to work a little bit harder. Yeah. Well,
like you said, it will open up. It will give you some extra options. But there's a couple of different things. I don't know about Arkansas, but Arkansas is probably pretty similar to Tennessee. And when I lived in Tennessee, as long as you didn't have an undergraduate degree, you were just coming out of high school, and you either had a GED or a high school diploma,
Mm-hmm.
you could go for the first 2 years to any community college, and the state of Tennessee would pay for that 2-year degree, and they wouldn't charge. So you can either go that route or you can get a Pell Grant. But if you think, okay, hey, I want to go into business and I need to get a degree. All right, fine. Go get a 2-year business degree. Like I said, maybe go work for like Sarah does. Work for Kroger or work for some place that work for Walmart or somebody and go and start working your way up and let them see that, hey, you know what? I'm really serious about this.
Mm-hmm.
And get my 2-year degree pay. It's going to be free. I'll go ahead and get that. As I work up and my career begins to build and I begin to make more money, then I'll go on to college or I'll continue to build my money up. And if I feel like I need a bachelor's degree, I probably am now at a point in my career I can pay for those classes and get those classes paid for out of pocket.
Yep.
Because guess what? When you go to get a job, they're not going to ask, where did you graduate from?
Nope.
So it does not matter that you have to get the most expensive college degree. You can get one that's relatively affordable-ish that you can pay for most of the time, because a lot of colleges, especially now, are running like these discount courses for, $200 and $300 a course. It may take you a little while,
sure,
but you're building your degree, you're building your wealth, and you're not getting yourself stuck in financial slavery with a student loan hanging over your head.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people with $100,000 in debt.
Well,
it's insane.
Here's what I'm trying to say, and you said it. Options. America has always, I want to clear that up. America has always been known as the land of opportunity. Not come to our country or come to this land and become wealthy.
No.
It is a land that gives you opportunity to become that. It is what you do with that opportunity. You will struggle. Many people, such as AOC, hates the term pull yourself up by the bootstraps. She says that's racist. Why is that racist? Because America is a country that is known about it's not racist to go, I've got a work ethic. No. And I want to do better for myself. And I need something to take care of myself and a family at some point.
Yeah.
And so you take advantage of the opportunity.
Well, I'm willing to go as far as say this ruling on affirmative action is up in the air, and I don't have a definitive, this is great, this is bad. I'm going to say I'm going to see where it takes us. I certainly do not like the idea of basing a decision off the color of your skin. So did someone else in history, but, we'll overlook that small historical figure. But my opinion is I think it's going to be rough at the beginning, like everything is in this country. Yeah. But I think it'll push people to work harder, which is great. But I also think it'll push people to things like the trades. Now, a lot of people, and I
think that's one of the best routes to go.
Yes, I'm gonna finish on this topic so we can go into the discrimination ruling that the.
Well, I've got one other point I want to bring up about that when you're done.
I'm just saying this. I'm done with this after this. I have nothing else, but I will say, guys, the trades aren't going to make you rich either. Nothing's going to make you rich except you.
Yeah.
Minus the name Gates, Bezos, and Musk being in your name, you're not going to get money without having to sacrifice and do things for it. And that's always how it's been. I don't understand. I look at the history of this country, and I have yet to find where somebody has not gotten to their wealth without sacrificing something, whether they sacrificed lives or they sacrificed, things in a good way. Because you can sacrifice stuff in a negative way. You can sacrifice things in a positive way. And I don't think anybody got their wealth without giving up a few things, an arm and a leg, metaphorically and physically. So get a degree. If you really like learning and you have the means to do it, that's awesome. But if you can't go to college, guys, the library isn't that much.
No, no, it was that Matt Damon in A Beautiful Mind? Is that the movie?
No, Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. and he's quoting how much the degree costs.
Yeah, he says what you paid for. Yeah. I did it for $2.99, and down at the local library. How do you like them apples?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite statements right there because, that really is it's initiative. You have to take if you go to college, you're still going to have to take the initiative to learn. But the thing is, they're selling people a bill of goods, knowing that it won't produce anything later. Mm-hmm. And there was something you want to say about discrimination, because as I look at what I'm getting ready to talk about, it's going to kind of segue into something else.
Okay, yeah. So the Supreme Court did a. That's weird. The Supreme Court had a ruling on businesses being able to discriminate.
Okay.
Against anybody who's, homosexual, has a homosexuality lifestyle, or is gay or whatever. Without getting into the weeds of that, I'm going to say, and this is going to sound strange for some people, I think that's wrong. I don't think you should be able to discriminate on somebody just because if they walk in there.
But is it just a thing where the business says, hey, we're not going to make that cake?
Sure, I think you should be able to turn down service to anybody. But
because the free market will always decide.
Yeah, and I think that's the good thing for me, is that what I'm thinking is that I don't think this is good, because now people are going to, and if they do it to themselves, but are going to foolishly lose business, because I don't care, because Thomas, I don't love money.
Yeah, but
if I could make money and you're gay, I don't care.
I think depending on where you are, I think looking down the barrel, no, if someone walks into your store, and really let's face it, okay? A lot of what they decided on was saying, hey, we're not going to make a cake that looks like a Felix.
Oh, right? Yeah, I mean, yes.
Right?
Yes. I think you...
So I mean, and that goes back to, I heard the podcast, I was listening to not a podcast, I was listening to an interview, and I believe it was with the guy that started the Daily Wire. What's his name? You know who I'm talking about?
Which one? Ben Shapiro?
No, the other guy.
Michael Moore? No,
Michael Knowles.
Michael Knowles.
He was having an interview with a guy who started. He was a kid. He was getting into modeling and trying to get into acting.
Yeah.
Meets these girls at a restaurant that he's working at. They tell him they're adult performers. Long story short, they get him an interview with their management. Yeah. He goes into pornography. He said when he does that, he said, I had no idea how big this was going to go. And he said literally within 48 hours, they dropped him. His management at the modeling agency and his management for his acting, they just dropped him.
Yeah.
Because they were like, we don't want anything to do with that.
No.
So I kind of think that what the Supreme Court was kind of dealing with was, it's kind of that same thing. We don't want our business tied in with that, right?
Sure.
I mean, it would be the same thing if we walk in here one day and we go on our social media platforms and somebody somehow has figured out how to, hey, we're going to do all this advertisement for you. And we say, okay, we're looking to hire somebody to do advertisement. What do you got? And then all of a sudden it's any kind of sexual agenda, but if it's gay pride, well, we don't agree with that.
Sure.
We're not going to change our logo into the rainbow, right? We should have that ability to say no.
Yeah, that's doing. So I look at it as.
But I don't think what I was saying was, I don't think that they're saying that the company can tell a person who's gay, I will not. Obviously, it should be their right to do so.
Yeah, no. They should have. I guess what I agree with you. If somebody walks in and is like, hey, I want a cake in the shape of a phallic object.
Yeah.
I think a company should be able to say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to be known for that type of stuff. But if they come in and they're like, hey, I want to, let's say I walk in. This is all hypothetical, folks, so bear with me. Let's say I walk in and I'm like, hey, I want a cake saying happy 10-year anniversary, Jacob.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay. Is that for your friend? And I'm like, no, it's my husband.
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
right.
no. And it's like, okay, sure. Is it, why? It's because you're gay. Okay. I don't think that is going to be, I think it's going to fuel more people to be more, now again, free market wise, that's going to kill business in terms, because you and I aren't going to turn somebody down who's LGBT to sit and talk on the podcast because they're gay.
No.
And it's not, and that's going to help us because let's say we get monetized on YouTube. Let's say we get monetized, period, in other realms, and we're making a living off of this, and somebody who's gay, lesbian, whatever, wants to come in and talk.
Yeah.
We will essentially be making money off of that person, i.e. doing business with them and making money off of the show, to then say, no, we don't want that. Yes, the free market will iron that junk out. I think it's I only think it's bad because I could see it being a whirlpool of more fights incoming. I think the problem with that isn't the abnormal customer coming. For instance, if somebody comes in on the podcast and wants to just start saying, racial slurs, and slurs and just belittling, the church and just being totally rude, we'd be like, we're not posting that episode.
We're cutting them off immediately. The mic's going to be cut. However, if they have their own podcast and they want to do that stuff, now you know who they are, right? You're going, okay, wait a minute. I don't want anything to do with that, because the free market will always dictate. That's the purpose of the free market. The free market, but this is the problem with our government. They don't think we're smart enough. Going back to the Woodrow Wilson administration, Woodrow Wilson did not believe that the American people were smart enough to understand complex issues. And this is one of those perfect cases where you're going, okay, if I feel like this company is being prejudiced towards the gay community, I don't want to shop there, because I don't think that anybody should try to hinder someone from the life they choose to live. Kind of what I understand from what I've read is a lot of the problem that people have here is like with that cake shop. The one I'm talking about was years ago. They had asked several bakeries to make the cake they wanted, and they said they would. They just kept going until they found that one. Right. They said, we won't do it.
Right. Yes, I get that.
And so I think that's kind of what they were doing.
You're trying to, yes, I get that. I don't see it as a problem in terms of anybody should be able to discriminate with their private business against whoever they want to, because at the end of the day, I believe in the free market.
Yeah.
And let's say you and I, we own a bakery. We're both Christians, and the bakery across the street, they're Christian, and they tell a customer, no, we're not going to sell you a cake because you're gay. And they come over to us, and they're like, hey, we'll pay you double. And we're like, well,
yeah, free
market.
Well, okay, let me put it like this. It is not everyone in the gay community that's doing that sort of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And so here's what I think. Just like guys like you and I want to tell a person like that organization that shows up and I can never think of their name. They protest all the dead soldiers, the funerals of the dead soldiers.
You're talking about Westboro.
Westboro Baptist. Just like us, just like the Southern Baptist, just like everyone who's mainstream Christian, we're like, hey, would you guys sit down and shut up?
Yeah.
It's your right to do this, but you're making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be those guys within the gay community, because you and I can't do it. There's going to have to be those guys within the gay community.
You have to keep your own people in check.
Yeah.
Because what doesn't happen enough in a lot of communities, because people are too afraid to go against the status quo.
Yeah.
You have to be able to say, you guys are being dumb.
Yeah,
this
quit going into these businesses and doing this.
Yeah,
just to create this problem.
The best example of this, and just to kind of give people an idea of where I'm coming from with this, The Boondocks is a satirical show about black people and just race relations in general. I don't know if you've ever seen the show. It's hilarious. It's a great show. N-word used like every other sentence because there's a point to it. They have an episode where Martin Luther King was actually put into a coma and wasn't killed. He comes out of the coma and he stands up in front of a group of black people, and they're predominantly ghetto. And he yells at them, calls them the N-word, and says, "You want to be called the N-word? You want to be called this? You want to do this?" He's like, I didn't take a bullet for you guys to act fools and act stupid and childish. This is dumb. We're giving in to the idea of what they thought of us, and now we look foolish. And so I think that was a good episode of trying to tell the people who watch the show, you need to stand up not only for your community, but against your community to keep them in check. Because at the end of the day, I tell my boys all the time at church, in the youth group, you acting a fool doesn't make me look bad. You make Christ look bad. Okay? And Christ isn't hurt that you're making him look bad, but the person on the other end who's thinking about, oh, is this what a Christian is? Is this what Christ really is? Because the truth is, no, it's not. But I'm human. I make mistakes. But you need to stop acting a fool. So you're right. Standing up to, if you're LGBT, my encouragement, if you want to take it from a Christian, my encouragement, stand up to the people you think are doing wrong.
And I will wrap up this week with this statement by a waste of beautiful womanhood, a.k.a. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says in a tweet, she writes in a tweet, let me say it like that, "It is very important to note this SCOTUS ruling does not remove Biden's ability to pursue student loan forgiveness. The Biden administration can use the HEA, Higher Education Act. Our position from the start to continue loan forgiveness before payments resume. They should do so ASAP." Does that mean he's still going to forgive student loans? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
What a weird time to be alive. But let me just say this. We live, Thomas and I, and those of you listening in the States, in the greatest country of all time. And by of all time, I truly mean greater than the land that David was king over, greater than the Egyptians, greater than some Austrian painter's dream of what he wanted his land to be. The United States has stood for a couple hundred years, but we've made strides in many directions, not always in the best. But the United States is a country that isn't a melting pot. It's a salad. We don't always blend together, but we all come together and make something great and healthy for the world to see and to look up to. You'll find kids in different countries that have been war-torn for decades that will look to the United States and say, I want to be there. Many kids will grow up and say, I want to be a Hollywood star. Many adults will say, I want to be in the great city of New York, Dallas, Los Angeles, Miami. This Independence Day is like every other Independence Day, a chance for you to relax and watch the fireworks, hug your family members, go fishing, enjoy yourself. But from the Exchange Podcast to you, we want to wish you a blessed and happy Independence Day. We love you. We thank you guys for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. Happy birthday, United States.